So I came up with my ideal list, which I call the panacea. And this, of course, is in book one, and I've got a few additives now to this. But at baseline, anyone over 40 should be on the panacea. And it's easy to remember because I'm really good with mnemonics. So the P, panacea, stands for pterostyl, which is the cousin of resveratrol. They're both sirtuin activators, and they do a variety of other things as well. But this is step one. You got to turn your sirtuins back on. There was one paper that suggested that pterostyl was not as good as if you had increased cholesterol. So it was one paper. I don't know if it's true or not. Anyway, choice is generally resveratrol or pterostyl. We need to make sure that we get one that's bioavailable, because otherwise the resveratrol bioavailability is very low. But they are making it in like new packaging, nanomyceles, et cetera, that does make it significantly better. But that's agent one. So everyone needs to be on one of the two of those. PA, panacea, A is for astaxanthin. Astaxanthin is the most amazing free radical scavenger that we have. It comes from algae that are angry. They're pissed off by their environment. They create this orange goo that allows that cell to survive under stressful conditions. And it honestly does the same thing for us. Anyone can take, I guess usually it's anywhere between 4 to 12 milligrams. There's no harm in taking any more of that, I wouldn't imagine. Unfortunately, it does make things pink. Anything pink in the marine system is probably because of astaxanthin. So roseate spoonbills, their feathers are pink because of this stuff. Quail eyes are red because of this. Salmon is red because of astaxanthin. So I think the only fear of taking too much astaxanthin is turning colors. But if you're okay with that, then sky's the limit. So PAN, and nicotinamide is the next one. Most people under 40 are nicotinamide deficient. Within the last year or so, they came out with a home kit. So for the low price of $300, you can find out what your nicotinamide level is. I would assume that anyone over 40 is going to be statistically low. It's just a matter of how deficient you are. The world knows, for the most part, or longevity people know, that everyone's deficient. So there's a war on to get you to take their type. So there's nicotinamide riboside, there's nicotinamide mononucleotide. Those are the two orals. And then you can get nasal sprays, transdermal patches, you can get injections, you can get your IV dose. It probably doesn't make a whole lot of difference how you get your nicotinamide, as long as you get your nicotinamide. So that's PAN. And then there's two C's. There's carnosine. Carnosine is a natural dipeptide that we all have in our bodies. So this is actually a supplement and not an adjuvant, because we're supplementing our own internal source. Men have more than women, and young people have more than old people. So by the time you're an older lady, you are carnosine deficient. Vegetarians are going to be carnosine deficient because it comes from mostly meat products, especially like turkey and chicken and that sort of stuff. But what it does is it's a transglycosylating agent. So it reduces the damage done by glucose in your cells. So glycation is one of this major problems, depending on if you're diabetic or not, a pre-diabetic, but we all love glucose. But by reducing the damage done and reducing the AGE load, that's only beneficial. So the top 5 has to include some sort of transglycosylating agent. And then lastly in this pile is curcumin. Curcumin is one of the best anti-inflammatory agents we have. And again, it does other things as well, but it's super amazing in terms of reducing your inflammasome. And the problem, of course, is that the bioavailability is limited. So there's been a war raging for the last decade, probably to make it more bioavailable. So if anyone is interested in buying it, you need to read the label, and it'll say high bioavailability. I'm not out to push any brands. I could really care less. But if it's going to help you, you can't take the regular stuff. It has to be high bioavailability. So that's top 5 of the standard panacea. From a pharmacological point of view, or an molecular basis, because the molecules look extraordinarily different.
There, I kind of went into this thinking that they were going to be very similar, and therefore, their activities and such are going to be similar. And they do act in a very similar fashion, but molecularly they're very different. So you have to wonder like how that happens sort of on an evolutionary scale. But they both do fantastic things, right? They're both AMP kinase activators, which makes them partial mTOR inhibitors. They change your microbiota. They do just a lot of things. But then there are sub things that some do and some don't, right? So metformin controls the mitochondrial transition pore, which is amazing. And there was no evidence that berberine did that. Anyway, so there are slightly different things that they both do. And my favorite study actually demonstrated in people, like real people, that 500 milligrams of each one separated by 8 hours a day was the most beneficial way to go. When I wrote book one, I was on this huge metformin kick, and I probably took far too much every day. I took 850 twice a day for my body size, which is probably a bit overkill. And then after sort of doing the research on berberine, I'm like, oh my God, this is truly amazing. And let's look at the synergistic effects rather than assuming that one thing is going to do everything. And this is also sort of a theme that sort of came out of book two as well. You don't need the same high doses of individual agents for things that are synergistic. 500 of one, 500 of the other together on a daily basis seem to be more beneficial than high doses of metformin with none of the side effects. So I thought that, that's now I think the way to go.
As you age, several things fall apart. Number one, most importantly, that everyone sees is presbyopia, which is the inability to focus up close, right? And that has to do with glycation or stiffness of the lens, right?
Yeah.
The lens is really interesting because you try to block radiation out of every other part of your body. We cover ourselves in sunscreen, but the lens is attracting it. So there's a heck of a lot of free radical damage in the lens. And because there's not a whole lot of blood flow, there's not a whole lot of endogenous free radical scavengers. On top of that, it gets horribly glycated. So your lens is just a sitting duck. So what's amazing about this is everyone gets presbyopia roughly the same time, right? Pretty much everyone in their mid-40s pulls out their reading glasses in a restaurant. I know you've probably been out to dinner. Everyone passes their glasses around. It's kind of ridiculously pathetic, but they do, right? But what's interesting is, so if presbyopia is your only problem, carnosine eye drops are amazing. So it's the same thing that you would orally take, but it comes in an eye drop. I've been using them now for a decade, and my up close vision is perfect.
Wow.
It might not be true, but it should be true. There's a fabulous Russian study. They gave these eye drops to, 500,000 people, and their vision got significantly better. So it's truly amazing. And it also reduces the risk of cataract. They actually give these eye drops to dogs to cure cataracts. Like, Lord forbid we ever said to a human, we could cure your cataract, because then the ophthalmology people would go out of business because they wouldn't, be able to charge $5,000 to take out your cataract and put an implant. That being said, this will reduce the risk of cataracts. I mean, will it get rid of it completely? Probably not, but it will prevent a lot of this stuff. So that's one thing that goes wrong with your eyeball over time. The other interesting that changes is the rods and cones in the back of your retina deteriorate, right? When people are driving at night, they can't see as well. And that's because cones are for color, rods are for black and white, and they just deteriorate over the course of time. And eye drops don't usually get to the back of your retina. So that's something that comes through your systemic vasculature for the most part. And so different agents that are required by the rods and the cones do better there. Astaxanthin is a fantastic example. Astaxanthin was fantastic. It helps your vision, as do the other xanthins, the zeaxanthin, and there's a few xanthins. But if you ever look at eye health, it's all the xanthins. And it's just because those are the molecules that are required in the rods and the cones to keep your retina healthy. The other one that's really good is the SKQ1. It's called Visomitten. It's amazing for eyes, and it goes specifically to the mitochondria. It's a strong free radical scavenger, and it just really helps vision. If you're young and you lose your hair, that's one thing, versus you're old and you lose your hair, versus losing the color of your hair. It's all different pieces and parts of this puzzle. So if you are young and you're losing your hair, it's probably genetic, and then you're sort of semi-screwed. If you're old and you're losing your hair and it's the male pattern balding, it's a cross between hormonal issues, blood flow in the scalp, and a variety of other things. Because if you PRP the bald spot as you are balding, you can actually recover a lot of the hair loss. So we know it's reversible. It's just a matter of what is it that we are reversing. It doesn't need to be topical, or can it be oral? Interestingly enough, there's something called a Clonia cava, which is a seaweed from Japan, and it's known to make your hair grow faster and better, which is kind of cool. How it does that exactly, I don't know, but it does, and studies have proven that it does. Additionally, so in terms of color can be one of two things. Color comes from melanocyte stem cells. How to phrase this? One of two things either happen. Either the melanocyte stem cell stops making melanocytes and therefore stops making color, or the hair gets bleached from within because you get a development of catalase in your cells. That's not true. You get a development of hydrogen peroxide in your cells, and catalase gets rid of it and turns it into oxygen and water. But if you have a catalase deficiency, you're going to bleach your hair before it grows out. So you're going to look gray. So you're either gray because you've got stem cell problem or you have a catalase deficiency, both of which you can kind of help by the entire program. So a lot of the things I talk about aren't going to be specifically for your hair, but they're going to help all of your cells in general, and therefore your hair will benefit by association. I don't have a magical shampoo if that's what you're asking for. A Clonia cava, I take it orally, but it does come, they put it in creams frequently, and you can smear it on yourself. I think there's actually an Clonia cava shampoo, I think. I've never used it. I think I've seen it advertised, but yes, I guess there is a magic shampoo. I don't know if it works or not. I've never tried. I have no firsthand evidence of that, but I do take a Clonia cava and I do have damn good hair, which may or may not be correlated. I have no idea. A normal looking person, or if you want to be a bodybuilder, right? We all know that these bodybuilder guys suck down every amino acid in the world. We don't really need to look like that, but to be normal, what you need to actually do is the opposite of rapamycin. You need to activate your mTOR pathway, right? Which is that sort of contradictory to this longevity thing. But leucine is a fabulous amino acid. It's one of the branch chain amino acids. There's leucine, isoleucine, and valine, and they actually act as sort of like an organizer of your muscle. And it helps muscle growth and organization without looking like kind of too bulky. So if you're really worried about sarcopenia, number one, take leucine. Number two, you also want collagen intake. You want collagen coming in, activating fibroblasts. Fibroblasts then sort of activate the whole system. So by taking collagen, you're not necessarily just producing collagen. It's sort of more complex than that. Collagen, leucine, and then you want to make sure your sirtuins are working, because without your sirtuins, you're not going to make any muscle, which then gets us back to resveratrol, proterostilbene, and then nicotinamide.